Hello, and welcome to the New York Baltic Film Festival in this year's virtual edition. It is a pleasure to welcome viewers from all over the US as we adapt to this new format. Established in 2018, the New York Baltic Film Festival is presented by Scandinavia House and organized by the Consul General of Estonia, Consul General of Lithuania, and the Consulate of Latvia in New York. Financial support for the festival comes from the Estonia Film Institute, National Film Center of Latvia, and the Lithuanian Film Center, with additional support from the Lithuanian Cultural Institute, the American Latvian Association, LV100, and the Embassy of Latvia in the US. Today, we are speaking with Jūle Rozīte, the head of programs for the festival, and the director, Lina Lužytė, the director of the Lithuanian comedy, The Castle, which is in our Laugh and Cry section of the festival during its first week. The festival is divided into 3 sections, and the second session is called Stress and Release, and it'll screen from October 29th through November 1st. And the festival concludes with the Looking Inward and Forward Baltic Showcases on November 12th through the 15th. So you can watch all of those films as well. So now please welcome Jūle and Lina.
Hi, everyone. So like Carl mentioned, we're here with Lina Lužytė, the director of the Castle. And if you're watching this, you've just probably seen it. If not, then there might be some spoilers here just to give you a heads up. So because the festival is completely digital this year or online, we have replaced our post-screening Q&As with these little videos, kind of Q&A conversations. So hi, welcome, Lina.
Hello, and thank you for having me here.
Where are you actually at the moment?
At the moment, I'm in my flat in Vilnius, Lithuania.
Okay. And so just a quick COVID question, because I'm just very curious regarding all the directors. Have the restrictions that have been in place over this year in the spring and the summer, have they affected your work and your artistic input in any way? Output, sorry, not input.
Well, definitely they've affected because I'm giving Q&As online, and I had a premiere of the film online, so it's very unexpected, it's very strange, but it's also very interesting. So yeah, and the rest of the time, yeah, like normally I sit in my studio and I work and on future films.
How was the premiere and not being able to be there with the audience? How did that feel?
That was very upsetting, but also better than nothing, you know. So, but it was also a bit funny because I was on Lesbos Island in Greece. I was shooting another film, and I had a terrible internet connection, and I was doing the Q&A after the premiere, and I couldn't hear anything, and nobody could hear anything from my side. So it was a kind of a disaster, but it's also a very memorable, you know, memory.
Okay. Yeah. Remind us which festival that was?
That was Galway Film Fair. It's in Ireland.
Right. So yeah, I that kind of maybe ties us into the Ireland question. What made you set the story in Ireland? And did you have any kind of connection with the country before? Did you know anyone there? How did that come about?
Traditionally, Lithuanians have migrated either to Ireland or UK, mostly. Of course, they migrated also to Scandinavia and to Germany and other countries, but Ireland and UK is like one of the most popular destinations. And then writing the script, I traveled to both of the countries, and I just felt in Ireland like home, you know, like I found a lot of similarities between the Irish and Lithuanians, like, you know, yeah, it felt the right place. There is like no big thing behind that. It just felt good, you know. And Dublin is much smaller than London, and Dublin has a lot of sort of social housing projects where kind of lots of migrants find their refuge in the first months or years of their arrival to the country. And yeah, I found it very cinematic, very somehow in a way similar to Lithuania, and the people were super nice, and it was a right decision to do because shooting in Ireland was extremely pleasant.
I found it very interesting. I mean, it's interesting that you say that there's similarities between the Irish and the Lithuanian. Do you mean kind of in nature or openness, or I don't know how they party, or like what is it that you felt kind of an affinity to?
Well, first of all, I think Irish are like really simple, like people, not meaning anything bad, but like they're easygoing, they're super nice, super open. And I think our histories are a bit similar because Lithuania was under Soviet Union and Irish were under British, and we are kind of two nations and we know what it means to be under somebody. And I think it does something, to the character of the nation. So I think in that case, we find similarities. But also Irish are just so hardworking, same as Lithuanians, and so, I don't know, kind and open and really a storyteller people. So it's, yeah.
I was very interested to see the expat or the exile community there, because that's something that I haven't seen in Baltic cinema. I mean, there's Tomas Vengris's Motherland, or there's like some other films about the kind of exile community. Did you have any experience with that yourself, or did you just like speak to Lithuanians who live in Ireland to get that kind of feel of the events and what is it, pardon my pronunciation, but the Cepelinai, like the party at the beginning?
So I've spent like a year reading everything I could find, watching everything I could find on Lithuanian migrants in Ireland, UK, and all other countries. Also, I have people who migrated in my own family. I think I'm, like most of the Lithuanians, because everybody has a story like that in their families. And then I started going to these countries and really meeting the Lithuanian communities and listening to the stories. And some stories were tough and some stories were funny. And then somehow I weaved them into the castle.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, you speak a lot about the migrants. Was this kind of a bigger idea that you'd had before, or like did you build the story around the character of the three women, or was it just you had this idea about the migrants? Like, what was the story that you wanted to tell?
So myself, I've spent past 8 years living, as I say, in Lithuania, on one leg in Berlin and one leg in Lithuania. And then I was traveling a lot. And for me, the most difficult question to answer was when somebody asked me, where do you live? I never knew what to say. And now it's very easy for me to say now I'm in Vilnius, since January 2020. And so my probably initial idea was to make a story about people living outside their country, and then I was very also touched by the modern slavery stories that Lithuanians experienced in UK and in Ireland, like slaving in the chicken factories without sleep, without food, without proper payment. And so I kind of took these two narratives, one living in a foreign country and the other one like, being in a way second-class person or seen as a second-class person. And I wanted to make a story about a Lithuanian who makes it or who tries to make it, and rejects the second-class sort of existence and goes for the, first-class existence. I wanted to make a film about a Lithuanian person, in this case, a girl who is not victimized, who is not a slave, but who is a fighter, So that was my initial idea.
No, I really, because like a lot of the topics that you mentioned, they can seem quite heavy or quite sad, but I like that in the film, it focuses on the dreams and the kind of funny little events in everyday life that kind of lifts the story. Can you talk about the daughter's kind of motivations and her dreams?
The daughters, the girls?
Yeah, the girl, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, she's 13, and she's this new generation who is not used to wait for something or to not get. She wants and she believes that she must have it, that she has a right to have anything she wants. And for me, I mean, she's very interesting because she is this new generation of the global world, a person who, wants and thinks that he can get that. And she doesn't think much about those who are around her. And in a way, her behavior is a bit even Machiavellian, But in the end of the story, I believe that she learns a lot of life wisdom, like she starts to understand that she's not on her own, that there are people and that other people are affected. For me, it's a kind of a coming of age story about a child, a teenage girl who is very self-centered, and then bit by bit, through very hard events or hard situations, learns some compassion.
Mm. Can you talk about the actress? Because she is,
oh,
I don't know,
yes,
in that role. It's just, I just want to, she just inhabits that character so well.
Well, people ask me always, how did you find this girl? And unfortunately, my story is not an interesting one. I found her by chance. I invited 5 girls to a casting, and she was one of them. And it was long ago, before we started shooting the film. And it was clear that she's amazing. She's extraordinary. And it was very easy to work with her because, I mean, she's not a professional actress. It was her second time in cinema, so she did not act. She really lived through the whole experience of the story. So, and sometimes it was really painful to watch her, because what she was playing, she was also living, and I saw, and it was tough for her, and it was difficult, and it was a lot of talking in between the takes and trying to calm her down and to support her. Yeah, she's amazing. And everybody in Lithuania after the premiere is saying like, oh my God, there is a new actress in the community of actors, and everybody's asking her, what's your plan, are you going to be an actress? And she says, I don't know. So she keeps it a secret.
So we'll keep an eye on her, but it is her real singing and her real playing in the film.
Absolutely, yeah. She comes from the only one how to say, art school in Lithuania. There was an art school, and she played for, I think, 7 or 6 years piano, and now she's in the singing department. So she's really a pro.
And I want to ask about I want to phrase this correctly, because the relationship of the 3 women, the daughter, the mother, and the grandmother, I wouldn't be able to, it's not necessarily chemistry that they have, but it's the way that they react to each other that is so, it feels like a family, because they're very antagonistic, but I just loved their kind of, I don't know, chemistry, or the way that they got into their roles. So how did you work with them to kind of get this kind of family anger, or something out of them?
It's very difficult for me to answer this question, because we never rehearsed or tried to talk so much about the relationship. I always saw these women somehow separate, like everybody lives her own life, and it's a bit distance from the life of the other, even between the mother and the daughter. I mean, what we did, we dyed the mother and the granny blonde, so they look, similar. But but I think my view is that they are not really bonding. It's very interesting to hear that you say that they look like a family. Well, music is something that ties them all together. Like the young one wants to be famous, the middle one doesn't want to hear about music, and the elderly one, all that she remembers is basically music. Maybe that is a kind of a tie that I had in mind.
Yeah, no, I think I meant more like, there's a certain way you only talk to your family members, unfortunately, and it's very kind of an intimate kind of, I don't know, you rub each other the wrong way. And I just felt like that came out in a very realistic way, like the mother and the daughter kind of bickering and arguing. So that was the kind of energy I was talking about, not necessarily that they're like on top of each other. No, I just enjoyed, I enjoyed watching that play out.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, so talking about you mentioned before that you talked to a lot of people in the Lithuanian community, but and base the story on like these little stories are the neighbors. I just love the neighbors that like pop up and have these like, you can see that there's like a whole world. It's like an anthill, and everyone has their own little story and they go away. Like, did these stories come out from your interviews, or how did you find these characters?
From life, you know, these stories come from life. Some little stories I read in newspapers, some I saw, you know, like in videos, like in news, some I heard from people directly talking to them. Also, it was very funny how I found Adam's character. Adam's the actor playing Adam. I was in Romania. I was in a festival with another of my films, and there was a kind of a dinner, and then I started talking that I'm looking for a kind of Romanian guy who could be, you know, doing some smuggling in Ireland. And then I was offered to call Andrei Chopec, you know, and I was like, who is Andrei Chopec? And they said, you'll see. And then I met the actor just before boarding the plane. And I started talking about the character, that this character is kind of a bit of a smuggler, smuggling some cigarettes and, you know, doing some little petty crimes. And he said, oh, come on, stop it, it's about me. And he started telling a story how he was in the US, and he was doing card tricks to make his living, and then he ended up in a prison because his visa was over, and then he came back to Romania, and then he went to Spain to work as a bouncer. And he was telling me all these stories, and at some point I remember thinking like, okay, but so what? And then he said, and on top of that, I'm an actor, and I'm playing the main roles, like, you know, the Duke Mishkin and all, and Hamlet and everything else in Romania. So I'm an actor, and it was a lot of let's say Adam's story came a lot from what Adam told me, what Andrei Chopec told me. So it's a mix of reading, of hearing, of experiencing. Yeah.
No, yeah, that I love the estate and like the feeling there, and you can just tell how kind of rich it is with stories. It really came through. So kind of to move towards the end of this Q&A, you mentioned several times that you're working on another project right now, or that you were filming. You were filming this summer, you said. Is there anything that you can tell us about your next projects?
Yes, this summer I've spent on Lesbos Island in Greece. I've been filming in a refugee camp called Moria, which I guess most of the people know that it, like a month ago, I think by now, it burned down. Unfortunately, no victims, nobody died, but it like this massive project of European Union to shield, to keep the people in the camp, to shield from, you know, them coming to us, to the, you know, the Europeans, has collapsed, and now it's a big crisis and big question what to do with the people and with the movement of the people. But I was focusing on an artist, on an Afghan artist, a filmmaker who was making his own film inside the camp, and I left just before the camp burned down. So yeah, so the film is not there yet. It's still in the editing, and it will take quite a lot of time, I guess.
So it's a documentary, I assume, about...
Yes, it will be a documentary, I guess. You know, it's interesting because I went there to make a film about the refugee crisis, but I realized that it should be a film about European crisis.
Right.
In regards to those people.
Yeah, no, it's interesting that you're developing this theme, and that you're really looking at, you know, people traveling in all directions. All right, I think that's all we have time for today, but I really want to thank you for joining us, and for our audiences who are gonna, they're not just, even though our festival is called the New York Festival, they're joining us from all over the US this year. So we're really excited to be able to share this film and this interview with them. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jūle. Thank you, Lina. And please do join us again for seeing the 9 films in this year's festival. All the information can be found at scandinavias.org or balticfilmfestival.org. So please do visit us again. And thank you again, and have a good day.
Thank you. Bye.